Hi, in this video we're getting down in the dumps. I'll be talking about Midden. Now, one thing that archaeologists worldwide spend a lot of their time investigating is Midden. The term Midden comes from Old Norse. It refers to a heap of refuse found associated with a kitchen or a settlement. The study of Middens gets back to the very core of the science of rubbish concept. Think of it like a modern private investigator going through someone's rubbish to glean information about them. The most common form of midden is a shell midden, often found around coastal areas. It forms into layers or heaps of discarded seashells, often containing fish bones, and items relating to the gathering and preparation of food. The shells and bones within a shell midden provide direct information regarding the diet of the people who created them. A sub-discipline called bioarchaeology specializes in studying animal remains from sites and extracting information about past diets from them. They can calculate the weight of meat represented by a midden deposit and look at various changes through time. Other objects that may be found in a New Zealand shell midden may be fire-cracked rocks. Maori often cooked food using heated stones in earthen ovens. Stones can explode when heated, and when they're too small to be useful, the fragments are often disposed of in middens. They're distinctive due to the discoloration that happens when the rock is heated and fractures. Obsidian. Small flakes of this volcanic glass can be found discarded when it has either grown dull or broken. Sharp flakes of obsidian were very useful cutting tools for Maori. I hope to do a separate video discussing obsidian, and I'll go into more detail about it there. Chert. Chert is a low-grade form of flint. Flint was a very important material around the world for tool making. Chert is a fine-grained sedimentary stone that was used by Maori for cutting tools, but was heavily used to create drill points, a key tool in both woodwork and the manufacture of fish hooks. Fish hooks and lures. Maori made an array of different fishing tackle, whether they be one-piece fish hooks crafted from a single slab of flat bone, or trolling lures using a body of wood or stone, sometimes with a colourful power shell inlay, and a separate bone or dog's tooth barb. Broken fishing tackle is not an unusual sight in middens where large amounts of fish bone is present. Sinkers and floats. Where net fishing was employed, there's a chance of finding the stone sinkers and pumice floats that were used on the nets. They are normally made by either grinding a groove around the outside of a pebble to tie a flax rope around, or by drilling a hole through the stone. Noticeably absent from this list, which overseas archaeologists would consider a very common thing to find in the midden, are ceramics. Maori did not produce ceramics, so the New Zealand archaeological record is completely devoid of them until the arrival of Europeans. The shells themselves can be chemically important to a midden. The dense deposits of calcium carbonate in the shells reduce the soil acidity greatly, and can aid in the preservation of organic materials that would not otherwise survive. Archaeologists have found seeds, starches, and fabrics in middens. New Zealand has some very acidic volcanic soils that will damage or even dissolve certain artifacts over time. But with middens, these acids will be neutralized out. In acidic soils, the shells on the outside of a midden may have had their calcareous white skeleton dissolved away. But the periostracum, or coloured skin from the outside of the shell, may remain, where normally it's the first part of a shell to biodegrade. The way a midden has been formed can tell a story in itself. This brings us to a fundamental archaeological law, one that we stole from geology. The law of superposition, and no, it has nothing to do with sex. The law was first proposed in the 17th century by Nicholas Steno, a Danish scholar, and it states that where one deposit overlies another, the upper must have accumulated later in time than the lower, which could not have been inserted beneath the layer already there. The layers or deposits in archaeological sites are called stratigraphy. The stratigraphy of a midden, or any other site for that matter, documents its formation. The bottom layers will represent the first use of the site, and it will build up over time. A midden could be representative of a single massive feast or repeated seasonal use, and ideally this would be visible in this stratigraphy, depending on whether the deposit is one amorphous dumping event or several distinct layers. If a site has clearly defined layers, each layer can be radiocarbon dated and the material in each layer tied into a time frame. Radiocarbon dating has its own advantages and disadvantages, and I hope to discuss that in detail in another video. Bioarchaeologists can look at things like species size and what species are present to track changes in the food stocks and what species are being exploited over time. For example, the layers in the bottom of a midden may have large quantities of very large shellfish, while the ones at the top may be thin layers of very small shells, suggesting an initial feast on plentiful untouched stocks, and a resulting drop in shellfish population over time, resulting in poorer harvests. Where this pattern does not occur, it would suggest that the shellfish beds are being managed to maintain the resource. Middens with many layers can become quite complicated for archaeologists to excavate. Here's a simple example for you, where one year a group of people collect seafood, set up a campfire, and erect drying racks to preserve the surplus food and create a midden from the waste. They may return the next year and sand has blown in, covering the entire site. So they set up in a slightly different spot. Their campfire may be located on the spot where the midden was the year before, and their new midden may be located where their old drying racks were. Maybe a different year, the wind has blown all the sand away, exposing the remains of the past camp. They won't want to set up on a pile of sharp shell, which was their old midden, but they could reuse their old campfire spot. When excavated archaeologically, you will have numerous patches of midden, divided spatially and chronologically. There may be separate distinct layers with sterile sand in between them, or all on the same horizon, or some combination of the two. The drying racks will leave stake holes punching through the various layers, and the campfires may leave circles of stones and deposits of charcoal and ash. Frequently you find flakes of stone around campfires where the people there sharpened and repaired tools. Trying to decipher sites like this is one of the challenges of being an archaeologist. Shell middens are important features for archaeologists trying to locate unrecorded archaeological sites. Their bright white shells show up clearly in cut or eroding profiles, and their extents can be defined using a tool called a gum digger's probe. This tool here, you see it has a long, thin steel shaft with a bulbous head to create a wider channel than the shaft, allowing you to remove it. It also has a sturdy handle, allowing your user to put their full weight behind it if need be. The distinct feel of crunching shell can allow an archaeologist to plot out the extent of a midden, even if it's buried and invisible on the surface. The presence of a midden can be indicative of the presence of less easy to spot sites. Maori kainga, or villages, they tend to leave little surface remains for archaeologists to identify, especially if modern land use has smoothed and levelled the surface. But the presence of large middens mean that people were living nearby. Whether it was a temporary camp or a sizable village, it raises the likelihood of a large site nearby. One concern arising with cultural resource management regarding this is the recording and protection of middens, without concern for what may be around them. Whole village sites can be destroyed, while their middens are cordoned off and protected, simply because they were the features that were easy to find. I hope this video has helped to provide some insight into midden and its value to archaeologists. Thanks for watching, And please like, comment, and subscribe.